The Aggies soar, Cougars win, and Utah falls flat. Let's cover it all right here on the postcast on the Red, Royal, and Blue podcast. Welcome into this postcast edition of the Red, Royal, and Blue podcast. I'm your host, Tate Goodlow. Today we're going to be covering this past week of college football in the state of Utah. We're going to start out with the first game of the day, which was Utah playing against Texas Tech at Rice-Eccles Stadium. This was the matchup of the week, not only in the Big 12, but possibly the country, as Texas Tech was ranked 17th and Utah was ranked 16th going into this one. The first half was very, very slow from both sides. Utah started with the ball in this one, couldn't get anything going. And then Texas Tech took over, and they had a hell of a drive on the first drive of the game. Got down to third down, and they ripped off a huge gain for 73 yards, I believe. 85 yards, 7 plays, took 3 minutes off the clock. With a 73-yard pass. It was kind of a pick play. A lot of the fans weren't happy about it. It did look like the running back caught the ball behind the line of scrimmage, which makes it a legal play, but it was close. And that was the only scoring in the first quarter. Turnovers all over the place. There was a Utah fumble. Utah got stuffed on fourth down at the Utah 46 on a fourth and one play. It looked like he might have gotten there, but they ruled him short. Utah. Then Texas Tech scored a touchdown, making it 7-0. And yeah, Utah had 2 fumbles, 2 picks. The fumbles were honestly just great defense by Texas Tech. They were really aiming for the punch out this game, and they punched it out multiple times. It was a masterclass, honestly, on fumbles. So Jacob Rodriguez got a pick in this one. Bryce Pollitt got a pick in this one. And Utah really couldn't do anything on offense, to be honest, most of the game. And then we'll dive into the stats here. Devin Dampier went 25 for 38 for 162 yards. No passing touchdowns and 2 interceptions with a QBR of 50.9. This is what I was worried about with this Utah team. If Devin Dampier can't run the football, I wasn't sure how effective he was going to be. And Texas Tech came in knowing what the Utes wanted to do with Devin Dampier. And he couldn't get anything going. He ran 11 times for only 27 yards with a long of only 7 yards. So, the run game all game was non-existent for Utah. Nakari Rogers led the rushing with 37 yards on 10 attempts. The longest rush play for Utah all game was 8 yards. So this Texas Tech obviously came into this one wanting to stop the run, and that's exactly what they did. Wayshawn Parker, 6 carries for only 22 yards. He did get a touchdown, but that was the only rushing touchdown and the only touchdown that Utah scored at all. They could not get the run game going. And then only 162 passing yards. That's not going to help your case when you can't run the ball. Dallin Bentley led the receiving game with 6 catches for 75 yards, followed by Ryan Davis with 70. And then after that, so you had Bentley with 75, Davis with 70, and then the third highest receiving player for Utah was Wayshawn Parker with 9 yards. This Utah offense couldn't get anything going. Yeah, Ryan Davis got a ball punched out, and Wayshawn Parker also got a ball punched out. Devin Dampierre, he on a read option, he chose to pitch it very late, and that ball ended up hitting the turf for a fumble, but Utah did get that one back. Um, and then Utah was only able to get one sack against the Red Raiders, which Utah is known as Sack Lake City. They're known for getting to the backfield and sacking quarterbacks, and they could not get it done um, in this one. There were two interceptions for Utah. Teo Johnson got one, and Jackson Benny got one. Um, those are both passes where um, um, I think Baron Morton kind of just underthrew the receivers, hit one of the Utah DBs right in the back, and it kicked up, and a Utah receiver was able to pick it off. And then the other one, um, the tight end just let the Utah defender rip it right out of his hands for the interception. So, um, yeah, and then looking at Texas Tech, they just played so well. Um, they rolled out two quarterbacks as Baron Morton went down in the first half, or he went down in the second half, early in the second half, and their backup was just as good, if not better, than Baron Morton was. Baron went 12 for 19 with 142 yards and two picks, no touchdowns. And then Will Hammond came in, the freshman, after Barron went down. He went 13 for 16 with 169 yards and two touchdowns, no interceptions. Um, when you have two quarterbacks that play better than Utah's starting quarterback, you can't expect, to win that game. The rushing game for Texas Tech wasn't great. Utah did stop the run relatively well in this one, giving up 173 yards. Cameron Dickey had 13 carries for 67 yards and two touchdowns. And then Will Hammond, 8 carries for 61 yards. Will Hammond was running all over the Utah defense in that second half. Really put the game away with a couple big runs on third down to keep the chains moving. And then Jacoby Williams had 11 carries for 43 yards. And Barrett Morton only ran for 2 yards on 5 attempts. And then Reggie Virgil, 6 receptions, 72 yards, and a touchdown. And then Terrence Carter had 7 receptions for 49 yards and a touchdown. Jacoby Williams was big in the passing game, 2 for 71. And then, Baron Morton did fumble the football, but they got it back. And then the 2 picks. This Utah offensive line just could not hold up against this Texas Tech defensive line, which was surprising going into this game. I was thinking that Utah had the edge on the line of scrimmage, and it was evident that they did not. Texas Tech only got 1 sack, but Devin Dampierre was under pressure constantly. Constantly was under pressure. He didn't have enough time, and they couldn't make any holes for the run game. And if you can't make holes for the run game, especially as Utah, who's very dependent on the run game to open up the passing game, you're not going to be able to win the game. This Texas Tech defense is good. This Texas Tech team is good. They're probably the best team in the Big 12. Definitely, in my opinion, a top 10 team in the country. Dylan Curtis again today. He missed a field goal, but Texas Tech ended up roughing him, so we got another try. So he went 1 for 1 today with a 32-yard field goal. It was a day where the offense of Utah could not get moving. A lot of punts, and turnovers. The turnovers are deadly. Third down efficiency, Texas Tech was 9 for 17, and Utah was 4 for 14. And then Utah was 0 for 2 on fourth down. So you got to be able to convert third and fourth downs to win the game. In total yards, Texas Tech just smoked Utah in the yards category. 484 for Texas Tech, 263 for Utah. Texas Tech was averaging about 9 yards per pass, and Utah was only averaging 4. That short game, if you're not moving the ball, which this is what Utah loves to do, short passes and then runs just keep the chains moving and keep the defense for the opponent on the field, but they couldn't do it. Um, and this one was weird. Texas Tech had 14 penalties for 122 yards. Utah had 2 penalties for 10 yards. Um, yeah, just unbelievable that Texas Tech had 14 penalties and won the game by the margin that they did. Um, they won the time of possession, 32-27. Um, they won the turnover battle. Utah turned it over 4 times in this one, and that you can't do that. You cannot do that against a good team. You can get away with that kind of thing early in the year in the non-conference. Once you get into conference play, that kind of thing just it kills you. It absolutely kills you. Um, so yeah, that one was interesting. Texas Tech, going into the fourth quarter, this was a 13-10 game. Utah brought it in within 3 points in the fourth quarter, and there was hope. And then the defense could not get off the field. Texas Tech scores 24 in the fourth quarter unanswered, to really put this one away. But yeah, this one caught me by surprise. I did pick Texas Tech to win, but I think I picked them to win by 3 or 4. I did not expect them to win by 24 points. So yeah, that one caught me off guard, but we'll see if Utah can bounce back moving forward. They have West Virginia this coming week, who's not a great squad, so I think they should be able to handle business. But we'll get into that on our Wednesday episode. We'll move into BYU versus East Carolina. This game, similar to the Utah game, got off to a extremely slow start. Opening the game, East Carolina, they got the ball first, and they returned the kick out past the 50-yard line. But BYU shut them down, 3 and out, forced a punt. And then BYU drove down the field, and they stalled out, turning the ball over on downs, actually, early in this one on their first drive, I believe. This game started out super slow. BYU ends up kicking a field goal. East Carolina, later in the quarter, responds with a field goal. BYU gets another one in the second quarter, and then there was no scoring until about a minute left in the first half. BYU pins ECU on the 1-yard line on a muffed punt. ECU muffs the punt. The ball rolls all the way back down to the 1, and ECU dives on it. So they're stuck on the 1-yard line. And then BYU is playing super off coverage. And I think that Evan Johnson just really baited Kaiten Hauser into throwing this bad pass, and he throws it to his receiver, and Evan just jumped the route, and he got a pick six there on the 1-yard line. So that put BYU up 10-3 going into the half, and I think that's what BYU needed. They needed some motivation because they looked bad. The play calling in the first half was atrocious. Just screen passes and run plays that clearly weren't working. Third and longs, and we're running the ball, and the play calling was ugly in the first half. LJ Martin has another 100-yard game on the ground, 14 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown, averaging 7 yards a carry, which is impressive to average 7 yards a carry. And then Moa had 7 carries for 28 yards. Parker Kingston threw a pass in this game on a little reverse play, throws down the field in double coverage, dangerous pass. And then Bear Bachmeier rushed for 5 carries for 26 yards and a rushing touchdown. He also threw for a touchdown in that second half. Carson Ryan, I believe, caught that touchdown pass. In the second half, I don't know what happened, but Aaron Roderick decided to open the play calling up, and it worked. Throwing the ball, you let Bear get into a rhythm, and he showed that he can sling it. He can throw the ball effectively. And once BYU started throwing the ball, they couldn't really be stopped. There wasn't a whole bunch that East Carolina could do about it. They win this one 34-13. BYU loses their streak on the year of not giving up a touchdown. They give one up late in the game in the fourth quarter. Um, you know, you can't not give up touchdowns the whole year. Eventually, you're going to give some up. So it's all right. BYU only had 2 sacks in this one. Only 2 sacks, but that's okay. They did not surrender a sack. That's big. Keeping Bear Bachmeier safe in the pocket is a huge deal. Give that true freshman, 19-year-old kid time in the pocket and make him feel safe and let him go through his progressions. The player of the game in this one has to be Evan Johnson. In the first half, ECU's driving down the field. I think they're on BYU's 5, and they're going into the end zone, and Keaton Hauser throws a slant to, I don't remember which receiver it was, but he throws a slant, and Evan Johnson jumps the route, picks it off. Then he brings it out of the end zone and runs it back into the end zone, which is never a good idea, but he brings it back out to about the 11. And then BYU stalls out on that drive and has to punt, and he gets the pick six, the first play of the drive that ECU has. So, Evan Johnson, far and away, player of the game in this one. Really turned the tide, I feel, for BYU. First guy to get in the end zone, and after his pick six, it was really BYU had control of the game after that. So, player of the game for me would go to Evan Johnson. BYU now goes on the road to Colorado, which, in my opinion, should be a win. It's going to be late. It's going to be 8 o'clock, I believe, kickoff time. We'll get into that one on Wednesday as well. Moving on, final game of the day, Utah State against the McNeese Cowboys. This one was never, ever a game at all. Utah State wins this one 48-7. They scored 13 in the first quarter, followed by 21 in the second quarter, and it was never close. Bryson Barnes went 19 for 27, 293 yards, averaged 10 yards a pass. He did throw an interception, had a QBR of 90.7. And then the defense for Utah State was incredible. They held Jake Strong, the quarterback for McNeese, to 7 completions on 23 attempts for 89 yards, averaged 3.9. He did throw a touchdown pass, the only touchdown of the game for McNeese. And then Alex Flores, 4 for 5, 41 yards. And then the rushing game, Utah State only surrendered 109 rushing yards and 130 passing yards. You give up 240-ish yards. It's going to be really hard to beat you. We knew going into this game that McNeese was not good, and it showed. Bryson Barnes also led the rushing game, 13 carries for 128 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Miles Davis also had a rushing touchdown. He had 118 yards. Noah White, 8 for 49. And then Javen Jacobs, 7 for 22 and a touchdown as well. So, yeah, Utah State rushes for 330 and they throw for 293. Braden Pagan leads the receiving. 3 catches for 95 yards, average 31.7 per reception, along of 50. Brady Boyd, number 2 in this one, 4 receptions, 84 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then Keanu Davis had one reception for 45 yards and a touchdown in this one. Utah State lost a fumble in this one, but that's okay. Not the end of the world there. When you win 48-7. Obviously, you want to clean that up. You don't want to have the turnovers. Bryson Barnes also threw an interception. So Utah State actually loses the turnover battle in this one. But, when you're scoring 48 points and only giving up 7, the turnover battle doesn't really matter. Third down efficiency wasn't great still for the Aggies 6 for 12, and then they held McNeese to 6 for 18. McNeese was 2 for 4 on fourth down. Utah State was 1 for 1. The total yards was just ridiculous. Utah State 630 total yards to McNeese's 239 yards. Utah throws an interception. They fumble. But as I said, when you score that many points, you're probably going to be all right. We'll go back real quick. Check out the offensive line for Utah State. They surrendered 1 sack, and they got 4 sacks. So that's much better than we've seen in the past for Utah State. They were giving up about 6 a game going into this one, and here they only give up 1. Against McNeese, you'd like to see that number be 0, but we'll take what we can get. That's improvement, and that's what's important here. Utah State wins this one 48-7, covering the spread in a game that was never a game, to be honest. Going into this next week, Utah State travels to Vanderbilt, number 18th ranked Vanderbilt, at a 10:45 Mountain Time kick. So we'll cover that one on Wednesday with our previews and score predictions. It was a good week in the state of Utah. Go 2-1. BYU's up to 25th in the poll. Utah falls out after their loss, but I think one win against West Virginia, and they're probably right back in it. So, that was the recap of this past week. That was the postcast, and let's head to the outro. All right, thank you all so much for watching this episode of the Red, Royal, and Blue podcast. Make sure you tune back in on Wednesday for our previews and score predictions for this coming week. Make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on the bell notification. You can find this podcast on YouTube and Spotify at the Red, Royal, and Blue podcast. And we'll see you next time. Peace.